بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحي. أهلا بكم أحبتي في درس جديد ومختلف، درس جديد ومحاضرة جديدة عن موضوع مهم جدا في فيزياء المواد أو في علم وهندسة المواد الهندسية، ألا وذلك الموضوع السبائك المعدنية ومخططات الاتزان الحراري. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful, the all-living. Here we are again, ladies and gentlemen, and to once again, and to a very common and very completely, or very way too different, very brand new lecture here about to encounter today, or about to discuss right here with you. And the lecture here, or even the lesson about to be presented today, is way too different in case of having new topics to deal with, or very new subjects or even very new items to discuss or even to get through, which are mainly associated or even mainly correlated, but will be specifically statistically specific here, such as the topic we're actually about to go through here right now, or we about to discuss, is the topics of metallic alloys and the thermal equilibrium diagrams, or the metallic alloys and the phase diagrams. أي السبائك المعدنية ومخططات أطوار أو مخططات الاتزان الحراري. الأهداف من رسم مخططات التوازن الحراري ودراسة السبائك المعدنية. The goals or the aims even inspired or even quoted, or the advantages of aims to be encountered, or the aims to be represented after the studying of the metallic alloys, as well as drawing the phase diagrams or even the thermal equilibrium diagrams we're about to go through right now or about to discuss, as you can see right here in front of you. The main aims: after studying the unit, the intern will be able to understanding or even get a full comprehension for the solubility or process, or get a full comprehension for the phase term, knowing the way to draw, knowing the optimum way to draw the thermal equilibrium diagrams, analyzing thermal equilibrium diagrams simply, analyzing thermal equilibrium diagrams for carbon and iron, identifying the microstructures and phases for binary alloys. لذا أهلا بكم في المقدمة. So welcome ladies and gentlemen here at the introduction for the topics we're about to go through right now, or the main topics today we're about to encounter, or even we're about to study during the very brand new lecture I present, the very brand new lecture represented here in the form of PDF or in the form of video to PDF capture, exactly as you can see right here in front of you. So introduction here. Mainly, the thermal equilibrium diagrams will be very advantageous, or even will very and really capitalizative to figure out the proportions and the ratios of compositions for the metallic elements within the alloys. Ratios and proportions of the metallic elements within the alloys, like I said here, and to be capitalized, or even to be able to to be able to add more elements to enhance even a certain feature for the metal, or even for a certain volume or alloy they're actually using for a certain applications, for a particular application, as you can see right here in front of you. So the introduction states, just because the nature properties of the pure or the intrinsic minerals or metals are appropriate most times for practical applications, or to be practically applied. So the combinations of mixtures of variety of metals, or even mixtures of metals from non-metallic elements, or a combination of metals, or a combination of minerals and non-metallic elements, so will be called or will be denoted as a metallic alloy. سبيكة معدنية. The metallic alloy is used to satisfy particular or even a practical purposes. The alloy is designed usually to satisfy a very specific engineering purposes, such as toughness, hardness, and corrosion resistance, and increasing or even enhancing melting point or melting temperature. Increasing or even improving melting temperature, melting point, not temperature, etc. So the alloys, you can see right here, from maybe a mixture of two elements, even called a binary will be denoted at then will be denoted as a binary alloy. The alloy will be a mixture of even three elements mutualized with each other, so it will be noted as a tertiary alloy, etc. So at the metallic alloys, typically the main or the fundamental element will be a metal, and the other further elements introduced, or even further elements mutualized, maybe metals or even non-metals. Solubility. Solubility occurs at the constituents elements, or even the combination elements of the alloys. e.g. بمعنى their atomic interference and their mutualized with each other homogeneously are in the melting state, or even the melting case. The mixture or even the blending may extend completely or limitedly at the state of solidifications, or at the case of solidifications. Usually the metallics at the solidification case is actually pretty much settled to be solved, or to be resolved within each other, or mutually within each other, if two or even more of the terms, or even more of the conditions, as you can see right here, you're about to encounter are achieved, or of two or even more of the conditions right here in front of you happens. A closeness of the atomic sizes, equivalence, or the equalizations of equivalence, or the equality of equivalence between the atoms. Cell type similarity, or the cellular type similarity. If the conditions are acetylated or unsaturated, or if the conditions are even unsatisfied, first to say that if the conditions are unsaturated, if the conditions are here right in front of you are not available, so the solubility will happen generally or typically. So solubility is a temperature dependent. Let us waste this idea. We take a proper example here, a proper example right here in front of you for the ether and water. Every time to solidify the ether, in case if we attempt to, or even in case if we try to dissolve the ether in water in very close degree, or even a very close temperature of the centigrade zero, so the water won't dissolve even more than 3% of the ether. And if we try the same temperature here to dissolve the water within the ether, we dissolve water mutually right into the earth, so we won't, in this case, we won't be able to even dissolve more than 13%, or even 13%, and by heat elevation, or even by temperature elevation. The solubility, or even the dissolution proportions, will be increased as illustrated in figure 3.1 or even 1.3. The solutions, or the dissolvent curve, which is a separate line or separable line between the dissolvent, complete dissolvent, and the partial dissolvents at the under curve area. We can find the two mixtures between ether dissolved within water and water dissolved within ether. So, as an example, if we mixed 50% of water and 50% of ether nearby the centigrade zero, so the water and ether will be split themselves in the way that even a little segment of water here will melt, or even will dissolve within a huge amount of ether with a proportion of 13%, as you can see right here in front of you. B, a little segment, or even as a tiny segment of ether, a very big segment of ether here will dissolve in a huge or even tremendous part of water with the proportions of 3%, as you can see right here in front of you, and we get to find two mixtures after all. And then we get two mixtures right after all, as you can see right here in front of you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And then we get two mixtures right after all, as you can see right here in front of you. Alright. Here is the figure we're actually used to deal with. The figure actually mostly correlated, or even mostly associated to the solubility of water and ether to each other, or mutualizations, solubility, or mutualized solubility for ether into water and water into ether at the same time. Here, as you can see, in the area under curve, يعني هنا كما ترون منحني ذوبان الماء والأثير في الخليط من صنفين في المساحة مساحة المنحني. مساحة المنحني here, as you can see, the area curve, or the curve area, as you can see right here, a mixture of two classes. Mixtures of two classes. On the leftward of the curve, as you can see right there, on the leftward of the curve area, يعني على على يسار أو على يمين. Here a rightward exactly at the rightward. Water dissolved in the ether. Water dissolved in the ether. يعني على الجانب الأيمن من مساحة المنحنى كما ترون هنا ماء مذاب في الإيثر. At the leftward or even left hand side of the curve area, if I want to be specific here, more specifically, ether is dissolved within the water, or even is ether is mutually dissolved into water, or mutually dissolved into the water. يعني الأثير مذاب في الماء كليا. Mutually أي كليا. Here is complete solubility, or even mutually soluble, or mutually dissolved elements, as you can see right here for you. Mutually dissolved stoichiometry. Not stoichiometry, elements, or I'm just going to say elements, or even the components of reactions, or reactants. Just going to say mutually dissolved reactants. هنا يعني عناصر مذابة ذوبانا تاما. هذا stoichiometry والله. The stoichiometry والله العظيم. Here is the curve of the temperature versus the curve of the curve of the temperature representations diagonally, or every temperature represented vertically at the diagram, or temperature represented graphically by using a graphic diagram, or even by using a graphic sketch, as you can see here, to disambiguate the way or even the mechanism of water dissolubility, or even the water solubility within the ether and the ether solubility in the water, and the vice versa. يعني والعكس صح. Zero water here, zero. And here is the 100% ether. After 10% of water, the ether is going to be 90%. At the 90% of water, the ether will be 10%. Here is 100% of water completely filled. Now the tank, or even the receptacle that actually contains the water with ether, or the water dissolved within the ether, and the ether will dissolve within the water, here contains at the beginning, or even at the beginning, contains 100% of ether and 100% of water at the end of reaction, or even at the certain proportion here, at certain compositions, the water will become 100% of amount, or even 100% of proportions, and the 0% with 0% of ether percents, as you can, or 0% of 100% of water percents, as well as 0 for ether, as you can see right here in front of you. Not 0%, but only 100%, because the percent way too greater to be mentioned in the circumstances we're actually dealing with right now, as you can see right here for you. يعني هنا 10% والله هنا 100 ماء والإيثر، وهنا 100 إيثر وماء كما ترون. هنا في البداية ماء 100%، وهنا الأثير 0%. 10% ماء، عند 10% ماء عند وجود here is the composition axis, or the composition indicating axis, or the axis indicating the composition proportions، أو المحور الدال على تركيب النسب للماء وللإيثر. الإيثر هو محلول كحولي is the alcoholic solutions, or refers to say a compensative hydrocarbon أو hydrocarbon معوض evaluative or even compensative hydrocarbon. عند وجود نسبة 10% ماء فسيوجد 90% إيثر، وعند وجود 90% ماء سيوجد 10% إيثر هنا. وهنا المخطط كما ترون أمامكم هو بداية أو مخطط كبداية لدراسة مخططات التوازن الحراري التي سندرسها لاحقا. Here as you can see right here in front of you، ليس كبداية وإنما مخطط تعريفي ليس كبداية، لأن بداية كلمة عظيمة يمكن لا يمكن أن نذكرها في الأمر الذي يتعامل معه. يعني كمخطط تعريفي was an indicative word as a beginning, not beginning, because the beginning is way too great to mention in the circumstances we're actually having right now, as you can see right here in front of you. But we only can say identificative, or an ID graph, or even ID graphical represent, or ID graphical translation for the subsequent studied, or even the phase diagram will be subsequently studied, or will be subsequently about to be subsequently discussed, or even about to be subsequently going right through. The figure 3.1 indicates or even illustrates the curve of the solubility water and ether. The phase. Article 32. The phase. The phase can be identified or even can be defined as the sort of materials of a homogenized sort of materials, has its own physical or has its own chemical and physical properties and mechanical distinguished features. For size, ice and water are two phases mutually coexist with each other, or even coexist and are reciprocal for size. So we can distinguish, just because we can distinguish water from ice, despite they have the same chemical compositions, but in different phases. Water in liquid phase and the snow or even the ice is in solid phase. The water and oil, when they mixed and wait for long, the oil will float above the water, and they can be very extremely distinguished. That's why, and thus they are two separated phases. They are two separated phases. For size, or the third example is the, as you can see right here in front of you. Here is the water with ice. هنا الماء والثلج طورين. وهنا الماء والزيت طورين، فسوف الزيت يطفو فوق الماء. Here is water and ice, or the water and oil in the same time are two very distinguished or very two extremely separable phases. So the water or the oil, but first the oil will float obviously and definitely or absolutely will float right above the surface of the water, forming two separated or even two extremely separated phases, as you can see right here in front of you. Figure 3.2 examples disambiguate the concepts of phases. Here is the topics we're about to go through right now, or the topics we're about to study, called at the article, even stated at the article, stipulated at the article 3.3. The thermal equilibrium diagrams, or the phase diagrams. In order to study alloys scientifically, intrinsically, يعني دراسة السبائك دراسة علمية بحتة أو سليمة, thermal equilibrium diagrams have to be studied. And we only just gonna have to mention the thermal equilibrium diagrams for binary alloys. We will exclusively and restrictly mention the thermal equilibrium diagrams for the binary alloys. يعني هنا حصرا سنذكر مخططات التوازن الحراري للسبائك الثنائية. The thermal equilibrium diagram can be identified or even can be defined as graphical representations for the staple phases at the various temperatures, or the various combinations, or the various combinations or components for the alloys. Many times the pressure will be taken in considerations, but in most of times will be in this study here we just gonna have to study the article 3.3.1, the curves of cooling and the thermal equilibrium diagrams, as you can see right here in front of you. In order to draw a thermal equilibrium diagram or phase diagram for any alloy, the curves of cooling has to be found, or cooling have to be found for the alloy, which are simply a very melting process for the alloy with different compositions or different combinations of their elements, then left to be cooled slowly, and draw a curves of temperature with time as cooling curves, called cooling curves من حياة التبريد, for various combinations. And at the existence of any change, or at any change in the alloy case, or at the alloy conditions, their phases, this will suddenly emerge, or this will suddenly come to surface in the form of cooling rate. The temperature will be recorded at which the variations take place with the combinations, or even versus the combinations of the alloy. With the combinations of the alloy, we just got to say with the combinations on the alloy, and the dots will be placed into two axes. The horizontal axis is the alloy compositions, or the alloy compositional proportions, and the vertical axis is the temperatures. And by attaching the points, we can only be able to draw the thermal equilibrium diagrams illustrated in Figure 3.3 at the disambiguation mean to draw the thermal equilibrium diagram, or even the phase diagrams. يعني لرسم مخطط الاتزان الحراري السبيكة فإن لابد من إيجاد منحنيات التبريد. So the cooling curves have to be found for the alloy. Cooling curves for the alloy or the alloy cooling curves have to be found. وهي ببساطة عمليات صهر للسبيكة, which they are simply a melting tasks for the alloy in various combinations or in various components بتركيبات مختلفة. من عناصرها from their elements, melting process to their elements in the various components, then left to be cooled or left to cool slowly. ثم نتركها تبرد ببطء. ونرسم منحنيات تغير الحرارة مع الزمن. أو نتركها تبرد وليس ببطء، ليس ببطء. احذفوا كلمة بطء. بطء كلمة تحذف، لا يمكن ذكرها هنا. The register of the elements is going to have to conduct a tasking of melting for the task of meltings for the alloys with different various compositions or in various components of their elements. They are left cooled, but not. We're left cooled rapidly, and we draw special curves of the temperature with time, called cooling curves, or denoted as cooling curves for the various compositions stipulated. للتركيبات المختلفة. عند وجود تغيير في حالة السبيكة at any change of the alloy condition, their faces يعني أطوارها يظهر ذلك على شكل تغير فجائي في التبريد. That will take place of a sudden change or even a sudden change at the cooling. مو معدل. حشو معدل. حشو تبرد. والله. The temperature will be registered, or the temperature will be regarded at which the variations take place versus the composition of the alloy, or even with the composition of the alloy, and the dots will be placed in two axes. يعني على محورين، محور طولي ومحور أفقي. محور أفقي هو تركيب السبيكة، محور أفقي هو تركيب السبيكة. والمحور الرئيسي هو درجة الحرارة. And the vertical axis represents, or even the vertical axis at which the temperature will be stable at, or the temperature points will be settled, or even temperature point will be placed right at. وبإيصال النقاط يمكن رسم مخطط الاتزان الحراري. And by attaching the points we can draw the thermal equilibrium diagram illustrated in figure 3.3 موضح في شكل 3.3 يوضح طريقة رسم مخطط الاتزان الحراري كما ترون. هنا درجة الحرارة وهنا التركيب. Here is the temperature at the vertical axis placed, temperatures in the form of points placed at the vertical axis, and the compositions as you can see here in the form of points placed right in the horizontal axis. شكل 3.3 مثال لطريقة رسم مخطط الاتزان الحراري من منحنيات التبريد. Equilibrium term here means or indicates that matter or even the substance or the mass that we actually deal with forming the mass of the alloy will reach an equilibrium state at certain or ambient temperature, which means e.g. the entire change obligated to be happen or obligated for them to take place will take place. And this is very much a reason for the cooling process. This is very much a reason for the cooling task. Which means that the entire change obligated to be happen will take place. The entire change should happen, or even the entire change should take place, will do. In addition to the form of the thermal equilibrium diagram, بالإضافة إلى شكل مخطط التوازن الحراري، فإنه يجب فحص عينات للبنية الدقيقة. A certain specimens should be inspected of microstructures, or in certain specimens of microstructures of the various faces should be inspected. يعني في إنه يجب فحص or should be examined. في إنه يجب فحص عينات البنية الدقيقة للأطوار المختلفة لكي تبقى دراسة السبائك متكاملة. In order for the alloy study to be sustainably integrated or to remain integrated. Here as illustrated in figure 3.4 illustrates the thermal equilibrium diagram or the phase diagram for two mutually dissolved materials or two mutually dissolved masses. يعني مخطط الاتزان الحراري لمادتين تامتين الذوبان. هاي the figure 3-4, as you see, as you're already aware of, or as you've been aware of, or even as you're already concerned, or even as you already been briefed with, the figure 3-4 represent a thermal equilibrium diagram for two completely or mutually dissolved materials, or two mutually dissolved masses, as nickel and copper for size, as nickel and Cu for size. There is actually called the melting line, which is the line upward, which is the line at which the above is the unmelted mass. Actually, the above is the unmelted mass, and the solidification line, which is the line at with every below is unsolidified, which is the line that every below is unsolidified. And the in-between coexistence is a mixture of the molten and solidifications, or as a mixture of molten and solidified masses, or as a mixture of molten and solidified masses. Exactly at point A, the alloy will be entirely molten, or even entirely melted. At the point B, there's actually solidified portion, or even solidified segments, and the further segments are melted, or even further segments are melted. At the point C, exactly, the solidified or the solidification ratio will be increased as compared to the molten. At the point D, the entire alloy is solidified, or the entire alloy will turn to a solid phase, will turn to the solid phase. كما ترون كل السبيكة ستتحول إلى الطور المتجمد. For nickel and Cu for size, there's actually a line or slick line called the slick line refers to a curved line called the molten line, which is line with no molten above, which is the line with no molten above, and the solidification line was the line with no solidified below, which is the line with no solidified below. And in between is a mixture of molten and solidified masses. Exactly at point A, the alloy will be entirely molten. At the point B, they're actually solidified, and the further is molten. And the further, beside the solidified masses, are or even is molten mass. At the point C, exactly, the solidified ratio, or the solidified to molten ratio will be increased. Exactly at the point D, the entire alloy or the entire alloy compositions will be solidified. Horizontal line rule, or even the lever arm rule. At the figure 3-4, there's actually a single phase at the point A and D. There are two phases at point C and B. And when there's actually a single phase coexists, so the phase ratios will be 100%, will be completely neutralized, or the phase ratio will be completely 100%. And the composition for the same phase is the same compositions of the alloy. يعني شكل 3-4 كما ترون يمكنكم مراجعته. At the figure 3-4, you can review the figure 3-4 just to figure out the main concept, or the main concept of the scientific principles here, or the mechanism of the first case thermal equilibrium diagram go with, or at which the thermal equilibrium diagram or the phase diagram concept is going with. يعني يمكن مراجعة بشكل 3-4 لفهم المبدأ الذي تتعامل معه الحالة الأولى من مخططات التوازن الحراري، ألا وهي حالة النيكل النحاس مع النيكل، أو النيكل مع النحاس. هناك طور واحد عند النقطة AD، وهناك طوران عند النقطة CB. عند وجود طور واحد فإن نسبة الأطوار تكون 100%، لأنه طور واحد، يعني هو فقط طور واحد، إذا نسبة الأطوار تكون هي كلها 100%، طور واحد إما متجمد أو منصهر. ليس منصهر، حجم 11 حجم 100% والله، حجم 100%. And the entire phase compositions is the same as the same as the compositions of the alloy itself. Is as the compositions of the alloy himself. At the coexistence even more than two phases, there's actually a ratio for each phase, as there is a ratio for the phase of its own component, which differs of the alloy component completely, which pretty much differs of the alloy component or even the alloy compositions completely. And in order to find this, we're just gonna have to follow, or even just gonna have to follow the rule of the lever arm technique, or follow the rule of the horizontal line as illustrated in figure 3.5. Well, there's actually more than two phases. There's actually a ratio for each phase, as well as each phase has its own composition, has its own compositions, which pretty much differs of the alloy entire or the alloy overall compositions. يعني كل طور له تركيبه الخاص الذي يختلف عن التركيب الكلي, the overall compositions of the alloy. In order to find this, we're just going to have to follow the rule of the lever arm technique. Rule of the lever arm technique أو قاعدة الخط الأفقي كما هو موضح في الشكل 3.5 as pretty much illustrated in figure 3.5. This is the figure 3.5, as you can see right for you. A, x0, x0, x1, x2, tb. Totally solidified, mixture of solidification, totally molten here, totally molten mass, you can find totally molten mass coexist at the upper curve area, or the upper curve area, or references be like hyper curve area. Hyper curve area, the molten mass will be coexist in a very tremendous proportion. يعني في المسافة فوق المنحني أو في المساحة هنا hyper curve area, the left area, or even references be like at the rightward of the curve, as you can see right here at the Coulomb curve. This is the Coulomb curve, or the Coulomb curve of the molten state, or the Coulomb curve of the molten case. Here is the Coulomb curve of the molten or the solidified case. Here is the Coulomb curve for the solidified case, and this is the Coulomb curve for the molten case. هنا مخطط التبريد أو إذن منحني التبريد لحالة المنصهرة، أو هنا المنحني التبريد للحالة المتجمدة. فوق هنا أو على يمين المنحني تجد الكتلة المنصهرة. Here at the leftward of the solidified Coulomb curves, we're just going to have to find the coexistence, or we're just going to have to find the solidified case, or even the entirely solidified mass coexists. Or here is the solidified mass, the solidified mass of the materials, or the solidified mass of the alloy is where it's supposed to be. يعني هنا حيث يفترض أن تكون المادة أو الكتلة المتجمدة من السبيكة. هنا الخليط المتجمد والمنصهر. Here is the mixture, or even the blend, the mixture after blending, or the mixture after mutualizations. The mixture of molten case, or even molten mass with the solidified mass. هنا الخليط من المادة أو الكتلة المنصهرة والكتلة المتجمدة من الخلية. شكل 3.5 قاعدة الخط الأفقي. هنا قلنا التركيب، وهنا درجة الحرارة. المحور الطولي هو درجة الحرارة. The longitudinal axis denoted as y, representing the temperature points placed, and the horizontal axis represented, and the x-axis, or represented as x-axis, represents, or even indicates the proportions of the composition proportions. In the figure, the alloy are formed, or the alloy is formed of two elements, A and B. At the leftward of the horizontal axis, there's going to be like the compositions of the alloy, 100% of A and 0%, or the A. Consequently, the right letter A will be written at the right hand side of the equation, or the right hand side of the curve will be a composition where the composition is supposed to be 100% of E and A. Consequently, the letter B will be written. And in between is the mixture of two. X will be denoted as X. The mixture of two of the both elements coexists, mutually dissolved with each other, or mutually even solidified, or even solidified, or even multiplied within each other will be denoted as X. Here, as you can see, mixture of two. Both elements solidified or even melted to each other mutually will be denoted as X. The mixture will be denoted as X. At the point F exactly, the composition of X1. Here as X, there's actually two phases, liquid and solid phase. In order to find, or in order to obtain the ratio for the phases and the composition of the phases, we draw or we graph from point F a horizontal line to intersect with the melting line, or with the molten line and the solidification line, where the liquid compositions, which is X0, and the solid composition, which is X2, will be there, or will be here, exactly at the same point we indicate 2, or exactly at the same point we already indicate 2. And the proportion in between, or even the ratio in between, will be as follows. والنسبة بينهما تكون كالآتي. Article 333. The thermal equilibrium diagram for two mutually dissolved materials in the liquid case and the partially dissolved material, or even limited dissolved masses in the solid case. يعني مخطط الإنسان الحراري لمادتين تامتي الذوبان في الحالة السائلة ومحدودتي الذوبان في الحالة المتجمدة. وهو مخطط الحراري للنحاس والفضة. Which is, by the way, the phase thermal equilibrium diagram for the Cu and Ag. Article 333 is actually very much studying, or even it's a study, or even it's elementary concept, or even elementary search is mostly associated to the thermal equilibrium diagram of two mutually solidified materials, or even two mutually solidified mass at the liquid phase, and the limit or better for us to be like limited solubility at the solid phase, or at the solid case, or limitedly solidified at the solid case. As you can see right here for me. The example here, as illustrated in figure 6.3, which is approximative form, pretty much approximative form for the estimated form, or the approximated form for the thermal equilibrium diagram of Cu and Ag. Here is, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see right here for you, is pretty much approximated graph for the figure 3.6 illustrate the thermal equilibrium diagram for the Cu and Ag. Here is the vertical line, which represents pretty much the temperature rise from the 400 right into the 1000. From the 400 temperature rise, it represents the temperature rise. More temperature rise you can get at more upward travel. If you get even more upward, at the vertical line, or even at the vertical line representing the temperature point arise, more temperature escalation or more temperature elevation you will get. يعني كل ما ترتفع بالطول أو كل ما ترتفع في خلال الخط العمودي سترتفع درجة الحرارة. From 300 right into the 1000. Here is the solubility lines, coolant curves. This is the solidification line, and this is the melting line, melting curve, and the solidification curve. This is the solidification curve and the melting curve. This is the solubility curve, and this is the solubility curve for the constituent B, and this is the solubility curve for the constituent A. Constituent A here is representing actually the copper, or even representing the Cu. And the constituent B, or the solubility line or solubility curve for constituent B represent the constituent of Ag, الفضة, يعني السيلفر, the silver. Here is B and L, which means the constituent B of silver plus liquid. Here is exactly at this portion, or exactly at this segment of or exactly at the curve bounded B plus liquid. هنا موجودة هنا بالتحديد أو بالضبط موجود عنصر الفضة مع منصهره، وهنا موجود عنصر النحاس مع منصهره. Here is where the Cu, here is the Cu is supposed to be, or the Cu molten, or the Cu constituents is actually coexist with the liquid phase of its own. Here it coexists with the liquid phase of its own. هنا منصهر النحاس موجود مع عنصر النحاس. Alpha is the constituent copper, or the copper constituents, or even Cu constituents, and beta is the Ag constituents, or even the silver constituents. أي مكون الفضة. تركيب الفضة. والله الحمد لله. This is, as we indicated before, as indicated in the PDF, as you can see right here in front of you. This is the melting curve, and this is the solidification curve, the solid curve and the melting curve. E is a eutectic point. Which we will subsequently mention. This is the point which we subsequently going to go through, or even subsequently going to discuss. This is subsequently the point, or even subsequently the very essential topic will be discussed exactly. As you can see right here in front of you, a figure of 6.3, an approximated graph for the thermal equilibrium diagram of Cu and Ag. And the thermal equilibrium diagram is actually denoted as binary eutectic diagram of the thermal equilibrium, for the thermal equilibrium. The word binary actually equated, or even the word binary is derived, or even denoting the thermal equilibrium diagram, just because it forms of two components, Cu and Ag. And the eutectic words for the way it happens exactly at the point E. The point is denoted as the eutectic point, just like I said here, just like I indicate, just like we indicate, or even just like the PDF indicates. And this is exactly going to disambiguate, or this is exactly going to explain later. The diagram, or even the sketch, has similar attributes, which are: the other three phases coexist in the diagram, which are the liquid and beta and alpha. The solid, or the phase alpha, is a solid solution, rich of full of Cu, which contains a very ratio of silver, or even the ratio of silver as a solvent, and in this as a solute. And in this transformer, exactly the phase beta is full of silver, and the Cu as well. And as you can see at the point B, the line, or even the curve CBA, represents the solubility frontiers of silver within the Cu, as well as the line, or the curve GF, represents the solubility frontier, or the solubility limits or boundaries of silver in Cu. G, the solubility proportion, or the solubility ratio, whether silver and Cu will reach the max, or reach the maximal point, or the maximum peak at the horizontal line of PEG, exactly at the horizontal curve of PEG, as you can see right here. D, melting temperature and the same PEG line, it will be at the point E of a eutectic point. Its horizontal line is actually a part of the solidification line, or the solidification curve. H, there are actually three distinct regions of phases. There are three distinguished regions, or in three distinguished spots of phases. So the region AEB with alpha plus liquid, or even with copper over Cu with its own liquid phase, and the region EGF with beta plus L, or even with silver with its own liquid phase, as well as the region of the curve CBEGH with copper and silver at the same time, or even Cu and Ag at the same time. A quantity of each phase and the constituents, or even quantity of each phase and and the component will be assigned with the same lever arm technique, or the same lever arm techniques discussed previously. يعني تعيين كمية الأطوار بنفس قاعدة الخط الأفقي السابقة. ليس التكوين كمية كل طور، وليس التكوين. هناك التكوين الكلمات تحذف، لأن التكوين كلمة عظيمة لا يمكن أن تذكر في المضمار الذي نتعامل معه الآن. حشو تكوين، حشو تكوين، حشو constituent والله. W. The point E at which the three phases of liquid alpha beta are meeting at, or even are get together at, come close together at, and then the temperature or the melting temperature at the eutectic point will take place. In this case, which means in the diagram, the point will occur at the temperature of 780 degrees centigrade and the composition of 71.9% Ag. In case if we notice, they're actually, in case we observe and were very noticeable, or even in case we are actually, in case if we are actually being very observed. So there are three phases accumulate, or the three phases get together exactly at this point, exactly at the eutectic point. The figure 3.7 illustrates the microstructures at the C1 compositions, or the C1 proportions, with which has only single phase of alpha at the various Celsius. Yes. Yeah. The compositions and the temperature. This is the C1, and this is the O, and this is the CO. As you can see, here is the C1, very dotted, intermittently it coexist micro. Or they very intermittently coexist within the microstructure itself. Here, as you can see, at the liquid phase, alpha is overrun the whole liquid phase, or alpha is actually tremendously coexist within the liquid phase of the microstructure, as you can see. يعني هنا الطور النحاسي موجود بكثرة, or overwhelmingly coexist within the or coexist overwhelmingly in the liquid phase. يعني هنا الطور alpha, here as you can see right here in front of you, the phase alpha, which is mostly denoted as for copper, or even denoted as for Cu, overwhelmingly exist right at, or exist right on the liquid phase, right on the liquid phase. يعني الطور الفا اللي هو النحاس, طور الفا النحاس الرائع والله العظيم والله, موجود بكثرة موجود في كثرة هنا على الطور السائل. Cl, here is the Cl and the solidified, pretty much solidified copper phase, or the solid phase of Cu. Here is the solid phase of Cu. The figure 3.8, the simply grades or even clarifies the microstructure at the composition of T2, which has two phases of alpha and beta, at the various temperatures, or even at the various Celsius. As illustrated at the figure 3.9, illustrate the microstructure at the eutectic compositions at the various Celsius as well. And at temperature of eutectic, we can notify the microstructure is actually very distinctive, very distinctive in form. So it will exist in a form of diagram denoted as lamellae. Will be in the form of diagram denoted as lamellae. Figure 3.8, the microstructure at the composition of C2, which already has two phases. Here, as you can see right here, Cl liquid, and this solidified plus liquid, or even solid plus liquid, or even solid plus molten, and this is a single phase solid, or a solid single phase of Cu coexist, or in a single solid phase of Cu here. This at this point exactly of the siliceous bonds will exactly and definitely at the siliceous bonds as we assign right here, right in front of you. يعني بالضبط عند تلك النقطة التي نعينها هنا المعينة هنا or assigned here المعينة هنا الطورين the both faces alpha and beta Cu and silver are actually introduced or even presented or even presented. يعني الطورين النحاس والفضة كما ترون. Figure 3.9, the microstructure at the eutectic composition, or the microstructure of the eutectic compositions. This is the eutectic point. The eutectic point here, as you can see right here for you. This is, as we indicated formally, or even as stipulated, right at the thermal equilibrium or the phase diagram concept or principle. This, the vertical axis, is actually very much associated or even exclusively restricted with temperature. يعني هنا كما مذكور في مفهوم مخطط التوازن الحراري ومفهوم مخططات الأطوار المحور العمودي أو المحور الشاقولي محور الواي مخصص أو حصريا لدرجة الحرارة. وكذلك المحور الأفقي as well as the horizontal compositions is very much or exclusively for the compositions. والمحور الأفقي كذلك مخصص فقط لتمثيل التركيب to represent the compositions ratios. ممثل للتركيب. Here exactly at the right word of the eutectic point or at the right word of the eutectic line you can define the both faces presented. يعني هنا في الجانب الأيمن من خط اليوتكتيك نجد الطورين موجودان هنا. الطورين هنا ألفا النحاس وبيتا الفضة. Here as you can see the beta and here is the beta on its own. يعني على هنا نجد الفضة لوحدها and here you can find the Cu on its own. وهنا النحاس وحده. النحاس أكبر من الفضة أكيد. Beta plus liquid. Here as you can see right here in the curve area كما ترون في مساحات المنحني بين خط التجمد وخط الانصهار right between the here exactly at the area indicated before or exactly as the area indicated here the face silver or the silver face solid silver face plus the liquid silver face. يعني هنا الفضة موجودة في المساحة الموجودة أمامكم. الفضة متواجدة مع الطور السائل. وهنا here as you can see right here the Cu and the curve area as you can see right here the liquid phase. Here is completely melted mass. هنا perfectly or optimally melted mass, or even as you can see right here an optimally liquid phase, liquid state. C3 is the composition which is liquid by the way, or in the liquid phase by the way. C3 في تركيب السائل كما ترون. As you can see right here for me, as well as the eutectic compositions at three faces points coexist. There are actually a binary thermal equilibrium diagrams, a further binary thermal equilibrium diagrams of phase diagrams with the three faces points, such as the eutectoid composition. Here, as you can see, the eutectoid composition is illustrated in figure 1 or 3.11. Two solidified faces will be coexist will be coexist even or even within the temperature of eutectic. The eutectoid compositions will form as single phase, or even will be in a single solid phase. single solid phase at the hypereutectoid, and will be converted into two hypereutectoid solid phases. The pretectic compositions. B. The pretectic compositions, as illustrated here in Figure 312, is in the form each is in the form of two hyperprotectic solid liquid, or even hyperprotectic temperature liquid phase, and the hypoprotectic temperature solid phase. يعني عبارة عن طورين، أحدهما سائل فوق درجة حرارة فوق البريتكتيك، هايبربريتكتيك، تحت البريتكتيك. الطور واحد فقط هنا سائل فوق. حشو البريتكتيك، حشو التمبرتشر، حشو البريتكتيك، حشو التمبرتشر. والله here, as you can see, one in front of you, the composition, or even the figure 312 illustrates the pretectic compositions. G. The pretectoidic composition. As the way illustrated in figure 313, the pretectic compositions is about to be of two phases, two solid phases, and the hyperpretectoid temperature, or even single phase at the hypopretectoid temperature, or at the hyperpretectoid, or at the hyperpretectoid only. حشو temperature، حشو البريتكتويد، حشو temperature، حشو البريتكتويد. والله. This figure, as you can see right here in front of you, figure 314 or 14.3, illustrates the thermal equilibrium diagram, or the thermal equilibrium phase diagram for the lead and tin, for the PB and TI. يعني كما ترون شكل 14 مخطط الأطوار للاتزان الحراري للرصاص والقصدير. Liquid phase completely neutralized, or even completely mutually solidified materials, or completely mutually molten mass. This is alpha phase for the PB, or this is the alpha phase for the alpha phase for the PB, as you can see right here for you, or for the SN. For the SN, the alpha phase is for the SN compositions. Here is the beta phase for the tin composition, as you can see right here for you. This is the eutectic point. This is the solidification line, or the solidification curve. This is the molting curve, and as indicated, and the molting curve exactly here. This is the tin with its own liquid phase, and this is the lead with its own liquid phase, as you can see right here in front of you. The eutectic point, or at the eutectic compositions, the alpha and beta, the lead and the tin are coexist within the same, or even coexist exactly at the region representing, or region indicates or indicated right here, as you can see. I'm moving the cursor right within, or as the cursor moves, or as the cursor, as you can see right here for you, moves right within, or moves right at. يعني هنا في المنطقة توجد الرصاص والقصدير خلال ما يتحرك السهم في النقطة ذاتها كما ترون. An example. The PB and tin illustrated figure 1433 illustrated figure at the PB and lead curve, or the PB and lead phase diagram curve, at the compositions of 30% SN and the temperature of 150 or 150 degrees centigrade, you found A. The compositions of each phases, alpha and beta, lead and tin. B. The weight of each phase. The weight ratio for each phase. The solution. Here, as you can see right here in front of you, the solutions as illustrated in figure, and by the application of the lever arm technique, or the pre-mentioned lever arm technique, so yields the composition of alpha 89 PB and 11% SN. The composition of beta PB and the SN 99. The alpha phase ratio, or the alpha phase proportion, equals to 40 minus 99, and 11 minus 99 equals to point. The beta phase ratio, or the beta phase proportions, 11 minus 99 is 0.33 or 0.33, as you can see right here for you. These the proportion extracted from the same lever arm technique pre-mentioned lever arm technique strategy to extract the proportions, or even to obtain the exact and the optimal proportions and the weighted ratios for the weighted ratios for the coexist elements, or the coexist alloying elements to be represented by the graphs, or to be represented graphically by a thermal equilibrium diagram. 3.4 The thermal equilibrium diagram of iron and carbon. يعني مخطط الاتزان الحراري للحديد والكربون. يسمى مخطط الاتزان الحراري للحديد والكربون بهوية المهندس، أو مشرف المواد. The thermal equilibrium diagram of the iron and carbon is indicated, or actually is denoted as the ID of the material supervisor, or the material quality control inspector. Is denoting, or even denoting the ID of the quality control inspector or the material engineering supervisor. مهم جدا في الأسئلة، ويجب التركيز به بعمق. Very essential at the solutions, very essential and very important, and should be profoundly concentrated at. Should be profoundly concentrated at. يعني يجب التركيز به بعمق. التركيز به عنه، تركيز عنه بعمق. This is the thermal equilibrium diagram, or thermal equilibrium phase diagram for the iron and carbon, at which the allotropy phenomena is taking place. Or exactly the allotropy is taking place. يعني التي تحصل عنه حالة التآصل، تآصل الحديد، the allotropy of iron. Here is again we indicated before, or indicated here, it just like indicated before, or indicated by the PDF, as you can see right here, or not by the PDF here, as you can see right here, the vertical line is actually representing the entire dots for the temperature representation graphically, or temperature graphical representation. يعني هنا تقوم الخط الأفقي على التمثيل الحراري للنقاط or for the temperature rise or the temperature elevation. التمثيل الحراري للحرارة التي تقوم فيها أو التي يحصل فيها الصهر. And the horizontal line is the graphical representations for the carbon percentage. يعني الخط الأفقي يمثل التمثيل المخططي أو التمثيل المخططي للنسبة المئوية للكربون. Very good. Go. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Figure 15.3 or the 15.3, the thermal equilibrium, the phase diagram of the iron and carbon, of the carbon and iron. Here is the comprehension concept, or even the comprehension methodology to deliver the idea of the carbon-iron thermal equilibrium phase diagram. The figure 15.3 illustrates the thermal equilibrium diagram of iron and carbon. We can only notice in this figure the following. We can only notice the following in the figure. At the RT, at the room temperature, there are two phases coexist. Alpha, called ferrite. The further phase is Fe3C, which is carbon-filled phases, called cementite. Cementite in English and in Arabic. For most times, actually, the carbide with a carbon ratio or the carbon proportion of 6.7%, which is the maximum carbon ratio or the maximum carbon proportions, can be here, as you can see right here. The ferrite phase contains carbons with the crystal structure. The unit cell of its own is the BCC. When heated, it will upgoing, or it will experiencing a change in phase to the phase Y, or it will experiencing a change in phase to the phase Y, and called as austenite, or called austenite. In case if we consider pure iron or intrinsic iron, so the change will happen exactly at the temperature of 912 degrees centigrade, and the phase Y will be or will possess a crystal structure of FCC. والطور Y سيكون له تركيب بلوري FCC، خلية مكعبة متمركزة الأوجه. Dot 2. The intrinsic of the pure iron will be converted again from Y to a further or even to a whole different phase denoted as delta ferrite. Delta ferrite exactly at the temperature of 1394 degrees centigrade. And the phase in turn will be again converted, or the phase will in turn will be again converted to the crystal structure, or will again possess, the phase will again possess the crystal structure of BCC. The task called polymorphism, or the task is actually denoted by the polymorphism term. The polymorphism can be defined as the material coexistability of more than two crystals, as you can see right here, existability of more than two crystals من قابلية المواد بالتواجد. The carbon will be taken as a solute within, will be taken as a solvent. So there's actually a peculiar introduced atom inclusions, exactly شوائب inclusions, the spots at which the carbon atoms will be of the FCC will be as FCC more than the BCC themselves, despite the atomic package factor of the SEC is more than it does for the BCC. Despite the atomic package factor, is actually a very interference here. Interference that actually took place. هنا يوجد تداخل. رغم أن معامل الازدحام في ال FCC أكثر كلا ال BCC معامل الازدحام له أكثر من ال FCC. Despite the coefficient of, or even the factor of packing for the BCC is more than it does for the FCC. And this states that the carbon proportion in the Y austenite, or even the carbon proportion at the fluoride delta BCC is more than he does for the carbon Y austenite. More than the carbon exactly this gives reasons or the states the reasons that the carbon proportions exactly at the delta fluoride BCC is more than he does at the delta fluoride BCC in the same time or in the same process conducted. Just because the delta fluoride phase is a stable phase at the very extremely high temperatures, so it is practically valuable. In case of mechanically propertized, the cementite carbide is very firm or very solid and very compatible, or even very fine element here to improve the steel features by adding a ratio, by adding proportion, by adding ratio, but a ratio of the cementites, right, or introducing a ratio of cementite, as you can see right here in figure 15.3. We can only notice that there are actually three tertiary or three phases points. Three points of three phases. 3 points. Each point has three phases. The eutectic point at the composition of 4.3% of carbon at the temperature of 1148 degrees centigrade. B, a eutectoid point exactly at the temperature or even exactly at the compositions of 0.77% at the temperature of 727 degrees centigrade. G, or G in English, the pretectic point at the composition of 0.2% at the temperature exactly regulated as at 1538 or 1538 degrees centigrade. Carbon iron alloys. There are three main denotations or even three nomenclatures for the carbon iron alloys. A, iron, which contains I suppose, the steel, usually in practical alloys, very rare to be found, is rarely to be found solid, or is solid rarely to be found. Solid is very rarely with the carbon proportions of 1%. The cast irons, actually, the steel is the highlights, or even the highlights of the carbon iron alloys and of the components in usage, or even the most commonly used. Many of times, further elements will be added to steel. For steel less than 1%, or for the steel less than 1, or for steel more than, as you can see right here, for the most common, which is the most common, by the way, the American Solid, the American Steel and Iron Institute, and the American Material Testing Society plays a very maneric digits, very commonly known maneric digits here in order to identify the alloys, consequently to identify their features, or to identify the features. The digits consist of either 4 or it consists of 3 integer digits. First 2 digits to the left and to the right indicates that the further elements within the alloy, in addition to the carbon or in addition to the iron, and the other digits or even the further digits indicates as well as such as, for example, the steel 1040, the steel 1040 coded as 1040. Layer digits are 40, which means that the carbon first 2 digits are 10, means that there are actually no further elements besides iron. Microstructure. Steel microstructure. Article 363. Article 163. The eutectoid compositions. The figure 16.3 is actually illustrate the microstructure of the eutectoid compositions when passing by, or when passing through, or when flowing through from the phase alpha at the A point to the delta or alpha phase Fe3C cementite plus Fe3C cementite at the point B. The microstructure at the point B is actually denoted as perlite. Here's, as you can see right in front of you here, the figure 16.3 illustrates the microstructure of the eutectoid composition steel, or for the steel possessing the eutectoic composition. The vertical axis graphically represents the temperature, a rise, or the temperature just only, and the horizontal axis graphically represents the carbon percentage. This is the microstructures of the hyper-eutectic composition steel. And as indicated here at the as indicated here at the figure or at the article 623, the hyper-eutectic composition, or the hyper-eutectic composition, just like I said here, hyper-eutectoid compositions. The figure 73 displays the microstructure of the steel. The figure 17.3 clarifies or even illustrates the microstructure of a steel when the carbon is at the, or the carbon is right on the eutectoid composition, or right at the eutectoid composition of 0.77% of weight, or of carbon weight. As illustrated with the figure, at the point C, there is actually a single phase of Y coexists at the point, and at the point E and D, the phase alpha will commence formation, or will commence polyformism, or will commence formation exactly at the granular boundaries, exactly right in the granular boundaries, or in the grain boundaries, and at the temperature of 727 degrees centigrade, and the composition will consist of alpha ferrite plus perlite, which in turn, the perlite of alpha plus cementite will be formed, and the composition of alpha ferrite plus perlite plus cementite will be formed, as you can see right here. The composition consists of, or even as follows, as you can see right here. Funny. Now, the composition, we just can't say the composition. There is the great composition of alpha ferrite plus perlite, alpha plus cementite will be formed, or even plus ferrite, or even alpha ferrite plus perlite, alpha plus cementite will be formed. Not consist. حشا بالرايت حشا بالرايت حشا cementite حشا cementite والله. Go. Microstructure is as follows, right for you. Gamma plus Fe3C. Fe3C is the cementite. Fe3C here exists actually in the form of the grains right in the granular boundaries. Right in the granular boundaries, as you can see right here for you. And the gamma coexist even as you can see right here for you. Proeutectoid, and this is actually the eutectoid Fe3C, and the proeutectoid Fe3C, as you can see right here for you, the perlite. This is the perlite microstructure in the form of reed stocks. The carbon percentage, as you can see, the figure 18.3. The microstructures of the proeutectoid steel composition, or the proeutectoid composition of steel, or steel compositionized as the form, or compositionized in the form of proeutectoid, or steel compositionized within, or steel compositionized at the form of a proeutectoid composition, or of the proeutectoid domain. Article 633. The hyper-eutectoid compositions. The figure 18.3 illustrates the microstructure of steel when the carbon proportions is bigger than the eutectoid compositions, or is bigger than the eutectoid, or even the carbon proportions is bigger than the eutectoid. والله حشو الكومبوزيشن حشو الكومبوزيشن. As well as illustrated with a figure, at the point G there's actually a single phase of Y. At the point H, the cementite will begin to form right in the grain boundaries. At the point 1 or at the point I of 747 degrees centigrade, the compositions will be of cementite plus perlite. Cementite plus ferrite. Perlite is cementite plus ferrite. Cementite and ferrite is the perlite. And the cementite is cementite independently. Or cementite is a cementite. Or cementite is an element, as you can see right here for you. An example from the phase diagram, or the of carbon nanowire. It's actually a component of steel in the proportion of steel component of the proportion 99.65% of carbon and iron of 35% at the temperature of the eutectoid. Find the ferrite proportions and cementite proportions as well as the composition for each. Find or state the ferrite and cementite proportions and the composition for each. Solutions from the carbon iron integrated phase thermal equilibrium diagram, we can only find that the ferrite compositions is 0.022% and the iron is 99.95%, or even the carbon is 99.98% of carbon, and the iron is 0.022%. is actually presented right as proportional values, or even proportional values mutually presented to the diagram. The alpha phase ratio, or the alpha phase proportions, equals to 0.35 minus equal to 0.95. The cementite proportion is 0.022. Cementite, as you can see right here, is 6.7 carbon and 6.7 carbon, or like the cementite compositions is 93.3% of carbons. By applying the lever arm techniques for proportion calculation or for proportion computation, we're just gonna have to only find that. Cementite proportion is 0.022 minus 0.35, 0.022 as 0.05. Example for exercise. Find the quantity of each Y and alpha in 3 kg of iron at the following temperatures: 850, 728, and 720 degrees centigrade. The solution is as follows, as you can see right here for you. Here is the solution at the temperature, at the degree of 850, at the degree of 728, at the degree of 726. The ratios of composition illustrated or even disaggregated as follows. يعني في درجة حرارة 850 ودرجة حرارة 728 ودرجة حرارة 700 كذلك. النتائج موضحة بالشكل التالي الذي رأيتموه أمامكم. Summary of the chapter 3. We are at the inception of the chapter 3 of a practical study. At the inception of the chapter 3, we begin of a practical study of solubility, then the phases and the way to identify them, and then we study the thermal equilibrium phase diagrams for the binary alloys and the way to draw them by using cone curves, then analyzing the phases, including studying the microstructures for various phases, as well as, and that was for 2 completely mutualized dissolved element into each other in the solid state, then incompletely solidified elements exactly at the solid state. We identified the tri-phases point, or the 3 phases points, which are the eutectic and the eutectoid and the pretectic and the pretectoid. And we already mentioned that we're just gonna have already mentioned that the very essential diagram, a very essential diagram to mention, which is the thermal equilibrium. All right. Just to disambiguate this. Just to clarify this. The three phases points. We identified the three phases point. And we identified the three phases points, which are the eutectic and eutectoid, as you already been through, or as you already been briefed with. We studied then, or we commence afterwards, a very important topic, which is the thermal equilibrium diagram, phase diagram of the carbon and iron. We disambiguate and clarify the various phases. Then we differentiate between the iron and steel and the cast iron. Cast iron is the best, and the steel is even better, and the iron is actually, as you can know the iron with, as the way you know the iron with, or as the way you know the iron. Lately, we studied the microstructure. At last. Not even at last. We're just going to have to keep going. يعني ليس أخيرا، وإنما سوف نتابع البحث أو نتابع التقصي والدراسة. نتابع دراسة عن مخططات الطور. أخيرا لا تذكر هنا، لا يمكن أن تذكر أخيرا. لا يمكن أن تذكر، لا يمكن ذكرها. حشو ما structure والله. We studied the microstructure of steel with the analysis, with the facial or the faces analysis, with the various faces analysis with. تم بحمد الله.